Well, hello, everyone. This is Jessie Bowen, and I'm excited to be here with the Become an Author podcast. And this is also part of our martial arts podcast, which is the Martial Arts Extraordinaire Magazine podcast. So today with our guest, I didn't quite know where I wanted to put him because he's just got so many things going on. This is going to be a 2-in-1 type of podcast. We have Hanshi Stephen Kaufman with us today, legendary martial artist. I truly bow to it. Because I remember reading his work when I was getting involved in the martial arts, and his books have really inspired the philosophy and the thinking of the martial arts. He's an award-winning author, has sold millions of books, and really, truly an empowering person. So, hey, sir, welcome to our program today.
Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, we were hanging out in Atlantic City just a few weeks ago in the cold.
Yeah, no, that was an astonishing event, and I was humbled before the creator of the universe, and that I was bestowed with such an honor, greatest of all time, which gave me a lot to think about. And I said, my gosh, I hope I can live up to this. And I said, well, I guess I have, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So
that's true.
It's based on the 70 years I've been in the martial arts. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but you got an idea. Start with 8.
You look good.
5. How's that?
You look good. You're looking good. And as you said before, the action martial arts and is one of the premier martial arts organizations for honoring people for their contributions. So well deserved. We produced the 7th book for Sifu Goldberg of his martial arts history book. And so, it's always a really great honor to go there and be a part of it. So I know you've been in the martial arts for a very long time, and you really have impacted people. You impacted me, my teacher, and my teacher always encouraged us to read, to study, and it's not just a kick and punch. You're considered at one of those legends, especially in the American martial arts arena and other areas. So let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I hate to do that. But I started in the martial arts in the middle 1950s. So I had hair. Okay. And it started when I was stationed in the Air Force. I was sent to Okinawa at the onset of the Vietnam War. Okay, so, but we went around, and I, found out about karate. I said, what is this? All right, and here I am 70 years later. But the thing is, early on, I started understanding something about it that was not based on kicks and punches and blocks. There had to be more to it. Now, what was more to it was when we were discharged, I'm talking about a number of people, including myself, came back to New York. There was no one here to take us to a next step. And the only way we could do it was if you were in Korean style, I was Okinawan, someone was Japanese, someone was Kung Fu. And then what we would do, okay, let's see what you got. And it was a very strange thing. But then again, at that early age, you're immortal, so nothing's going to happen anyway. So make a long story short, which is impossible to do, but we'll try. And we just went around to each other's dojos and like started teaching each other. I started noticing that like a lot of people were just into my punches faster than your kick, and all says no, there's got to be more going on here, okay? And I did my homework, with the Bubishi and the other books that were available, but they didn't really say what was going on. Most influential book at the time was Nishiyama and Brown. This is karate. This is all geometry. This is exactly how you fire the shot. Mm-hmm. Then we had the Kyohan with Funakoshi, and that had the katas in it. But what was happening as all this was going on, we're having tournaments and contests. The first tournament I was in here was in 1962 at Madison Square Garden. And that was with Oyama. So we had a lot of contact, but nothing intimate, nothing in depth. And I said to myself at the time, plus I'm going around with all the guys, say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are we going? And everybody was like, well, that's it. We know how to handle ourselves. I said, no, man, no, that's not what this is about. A lot of introspection, and this is why I say I don't like to really talk about myself. A lot of introspection is, wait a minute, karate's not about fighting. What, you got to eat mine? I says, no, guys, I'm telling you, it's not about fighting. What's it about? Well, to be blunt, it's about killing an attacker. This is combat. This is the real deal. Yeah, but you can't do that. Yeah, well, you're going to have to do it or don't do it at all, which led me to the next step to develop my own technique to where I got to pat myself on the back and I'll say, okay, you know something? I wouldn't want to get hit with my own shots. That made me realize something, that I never want to have to hit anybody with one of these shots. You hit somebody with the intention of what it's created for, you're going to have to do a lot of paperwork, fill out papers and things like that. Keep going with this. So I kept studying and studying, finding about the samurai mentality, the samurai mindset, things come across Musashi. Now, my students at the time would come over to me, there were other versions of the Book of Five Rings. And my students would come to me and say, Sensei, what is this? What's he saying here? And I'm looking at it. I says, yeah, he's saying what it says, but that's not what it means. And I opened up a whole can of worms with this. I said, well, what are you talking about? Well, you said we got to slash, you're going to chop and slash. No. You cut. There's a big difference. And I prefaced my book, and there were a lot of books out that had suggested that the Book of Five Rings was a management manual for people that were working in corporations, especially in Japan and things like that. And I said, that's not what this is about. This is a very high-end philosophical concept. And I started getting into it. And I'm going to tell you, sir, that as I was translating and interpreting, and I was looking at this, I says, hey, a friend of mine, fluent Japanese, I said, what does this say? This is what it says. That's not what it means. So here we go now, where this book was written like 380 years ago by Musashi, allegedly, and then here we go again, written by Musashi while I was sitting in the cave at Regondo, which I recently had the honor of being able to visit the cave. I also went to Musashi Zuka Park. This is all Kumamoto. I did this my 86th birthday. I did my homage anyway. So as I'm doing all of this, we get to another section. I'm so, okay, well, it's loose, it's this, it's that. And I said, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it from the most intense perspective I can do it and keep me out of it. Okay? Now, that is not easy to do, as I'm sure you are well aware of.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Got to the point. Then we got to the fifth book, which is the Book of the Void. And I'm looking at this. And meanwhile, I hadn't sent it out to anyone yet. I'm looking at this. They're saying coup, K-U. K-U means nothing. Well, that's incorrect. Here we go. I says, it can't be coup because if it's nothing, nothing is something by definition, and that is going to restrict you from ascending to a higher level of consciousness. And here we go. Okay. It's mu, M-U, no thing. Okay, so I did it that way. And somebody say, why don't you get this published? I says, okay. So I sent it out to about 10 different publishers. What is this? Get away. Go, ignore it. I get a call from, at the time, Tuttle, who was the preeminent publisher for Asian works. He said to me, let's see this. So I sent it to him, the whole thing, and he comes back to me immediately. He said, what are you talking about? So you're making a mistake. It's coup, not mu. I said, no, you guys have been making a mistake for 380 years. It's not coup, it's mu, and I explained why. Dead silence. Dead silence. What's falling down? Okay, don't worry about it. I know who I am. But, okay.
That's it. That's it.
We'll get into all that. So anyway, they says, okay, well, they sent it to Japan to check it out, and they came back and says, well, where's he coming from, mu? What is this? And then all of a sudden, I get a call from someone whose name I will not mention respectfully. How do you know this? I said, well, it's common sense. He says, no, man, if it was common sense, everybody would know it. So I explained it to him. I says, okay, we're going with this. We're going to take a test and print 1,000 copies. Wow. Tell my old lady, hey, check it out, the 1,000 copies. Her first thing is, how much you getting?
They all want to know that. That is the secret.
That's the secret, right? No, so anyway, they come back about like a month later. We're going to go in another run. This time we're going to do 5,000 copies. And here's what you're getting, blah, blah, blah. So we made the deal. I didn't know what the hell I was doing anyway because, hey, I'm an author, so I'm going to be on television. I had no idea what's going on. A couple of months after that, and this is when it started getting crazy, I get a call from the publisher. He says, listen, we're doing this in a few languages, and we're going to make a run of 25,000 copies. I says, what's going on here? He says, and we were joking around. Have you read your own book? I says, yeah. I says, well, everybody's jumping up and down about this. So far, all right, 2.5 million copies worldwide in about 18 languages. I can't even keep up. I mean, if you saw the emails I get on a constant basis, I handle most of them. But then, subsequent to that, and this is all leading up to how to become an author, all right? They call me up and says, can you do the same sort of treatment with this, The Art of War? I said, sure, yeah, what's the difficulty? He said, well, everybody, if you've ever seen The Art of War, it's usually 800 pages, and they're talking about Wing Wang's goldfish pond and all these kind of things. I said, no. That's okay for showbiz, but that's not the reality of it. And meanwhile, it's starting to dawn on me, and I'm going to be very honest with you, who am I to know this? And this set me on a whole different journey in my life, right? And I did The Art of War instead of like 300 to 400 pages or, with all pictures and stuff like that. It's just 98 pages. This is what it is. This is how you do it. And this is how it works. So I start sending it out to corporations. I'm fooling around here. Where we going? I'm starting to get all kinds of, would you come in and talk to our management people? Would you come in and talk to our sales people? I put together a program, and you can, if you go to Hanshi, HANSHI.com, you can see the courses that I teach and the seminars I give. And I put together a combination seminar of the rings and war, and even took it to the next step, which was the Shogun scrolls. What's happened as a result of this, and then I found out, hey, I'm an author, so I start writing a lot. And so far to date, I've written over 40 books. And as you saw at my table when we were in AC over there, I had them all over the place. I had my grandson with me, and he's just talking to us. I said, hey, I didn't even know you read these things. He said, what are you kidding? This kind of thing. So that's what's happening. And like subsequent to that, I started realizing, anybody can throw punches and kicks. That's not what that's not it. So they have to learn self-defense and, to be able to handle this the proper way, unless they want to get into the circuit, the point circuit, the full contact circuit, and all that, which at this point I was starting to hit my 40s already. I said, no, later for that. I don't need that anymore. Can you do a self-defense book? Boom. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, Hanshi Kaufman. How's the light? Hanshi Kaufman's Ultimate Guide to Self-Defense. Now, when I did this, if you saw the book and you flip through it, I said, what's missing? And you say there's no pictures in there. And I said, that's right. There's no pictures in there because I'm 6'4". Okay. She's 5'3". Okay. And she's got to defend herself. If she sees me throwing you or, okay, you throwing me, she said, how the hell is she going to do that? She can't do that. But if I inculcate the concept into her psyche, instead of taking all these self-defense courses where she gets into a problem, she gets hurt, she'll be able to deal with it on a completely different level. So we started doing this. So now my book of self-defense, even though it's not like, huge with all pictures of, all that kind of stuff like that, is very straight ahead. And I give you like 5 examples. I take all the possible attacks, front attacks, different variations of front attacks, rear attacks, side attacks, sitting attacks, elevator attacks, stairwell attacks. Then we go into the dealing with weapons. And I put that in the back. And as you're learning to deal with the weapons, the book shows you how to use it, how to use that weapon if situations are reversed. We did very well with that. We still do very well with it. And somebody said, why don't you do a stick book? Okay. So like we got the stick book, and these were published by, this is The Art of Stick Fighting Self-Defense. Sometimes I go, what the hell's the name of that? Oh, okay, yeah, I got it, okay. And at the same time, I'm doing all these things. My wife said to me at the time, why don't you write a novel? I said, I don't write a novel. What's a novel? She says, well, do a novel. I says, I don't do dialogue. Now you're talking to the wife, right? Write a book, do dialogue, and supper will be ready in an hour. Yes, dear. That kind of thing. All right, so I wrote the Hanshi at Central Park. I wrote the Hanshi in Brussels. There were 7 books in the Hanshi series, all about, quasi-autobiographical, except for the fantasy things of taking on 30 guys, that kind of a thing. No James Bond. Recently, and all the time, I'm continuing to add to my output. My recent masterpiece, okay, and I'm calling it my masterpiece, is Silent Moon. Mm-hmm. This is the story of a sword from its inception to modern day. Okay. You got a copy of that, right?
Right.
You do. If you don't, you're going to get one. I mean,
right. Right. Yeah, yes, sir. I got one. I did not get that one at the event because you gifted me signed copy.
I sold out. I sold out 90% of the book. I took down about 200 books down there, which everybody's saying you need more. I said, no, what? It's too much as it is. So I got my grandson over there. We're blowing them out like crazy, and people are coming over buying 2 copies, 3 copies. One guy bought 12 copies of different titles. Okay, so we're going with that. So anyway, I started noticing a while ago that I had this innate ability to write. Now here we go with a segue now. Okay. So first of all, you got to go find an agent. Ha ha ha. Okay, you get that. Well, who are you? This, that, and the other thing. I says, I got a track record. They don't care because I got to say this, the old folks who used to be in the business are not there anymore, and the whole publishing business is a whole different thing now. It's hardly recognizable. Yes, you see, well, everything's a New York Times bestseller, but nobody tells you that's based on the amount of advertising revenue you give to the New York Times. Let's go there, okay? And I read a lot. I don't read a lot of them anymore. I read some of these books that are number one on a hit parade. These people can't write. They know how to tell a story. Maybe they don't. A lot of them doesn't get resolved. So they have editors and they got 3-4 people writing one book, right? And it's obvious. Not all of them, but the majority of them. Okay. The next thing is distribution. Next thing is getting it made. So I decided I am going to publish my own work. Where I have, like traditional publishers who take about 5 or 6 of my titles, but the other stuff I have to like really break my shoes trying to get something done.
Right.
Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's how many people are going to read this? I said, how much you're going to promote it?
That's
it. Promote it. Well, if I'm going to promote it, then I have to have you got to distribute it. And so it goes on and on. The whole thing comes down to how do you get this turned from typewritten WordPress, Word for Windows, into the form of a book, design the cover, structure the volume, make it appealing, and then how do I get it the hell out in the world?
Yes, and that's the key thing, because we've covered so much with what you said, and I think we go back to that first beginning is the uniqueness. People that are successful, they find this uniqueness in something, whether it's already created or something that they create, and they discover the uniqueness in it, and then finding that way to be able to connect. And that's what you've done. That you've taken what someone else has said, but you found and discovered something in it that is unique. Now think about it. If we hadn't had all these books around, especially martial arts books, when there were few and not a lot of them out there, and
excuse me, but go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead. No, you're absolutely right. With tons and tons and tons of books.
Yeah, and so when you look at it, think about it. And I always tell authors that everyone has a story. You just have to get it out. And so I write books from whatever I'm doing. So if I'm, I've decided that I'm doing another podcast with another grandmaster. He's a life coach too. And, we just decided yesterday, okay, we're going to write a book. It's going to release in August. And the title of the book is The Power to Live Your Vision. And so, so when you now combine and the study of the things that we have accomplished in life, along with the scientific things that work in life, because life is not all about just, in and out every day, but it's about the psychology or your own psyche. And, of you taking books and what was written, but reinterpreting that, I think is really brilliant, because not everyone thinks the same. Or you get a book is too complicated for me to ingest or to be able to get anything from it. So to come back and take a work and be able to break it down, like the Book of the Five Rings, I think that was probably one of the two books that my teacher actually gave me. The first book he gave me was Think and Grow Rich, and the other book he gave me was, was the Book of the Five Rings. And but those books inspired me, and this is what we look at as authors. If for young martial artists, go get a book. Don't just go to the dojo or dojang and train every day and not educate yourself, because as you were saying, the martial arts is beyond the punch and kick. Because if that's all it is, then you'll get burned out. You'll get old. You can't punch and kick. But you see, the psychology of the martial arts, and that in that other side, you punch and kick until you define that. When you can, and as you said before, I was talking to a young man on yesterday, and I was telling him, I said, and he was thinking about getting involved in the martial arts. And I was saying to him, because I study karate and I study Aikido, and I was telling him, if I apply my karate technique on you, you will never forgive me. But if I'm now able to use my Aikido side and control you, you have a moment to think about it, and you may thank me and be grateful for it. So it's not always hard. There's that yin and yang. But if you don't educate yourself, that's why, the first I'm inspired by magazines, but the first magazine that I ever saw was Karate Illustrated, my very first day of martial arts classes. So I go in a convenience store, and I had never seen the word karate, because it was really new back in that time. My very first day, I see a magazine. The top of the magazine, I see the word karate. It's like a red car. You buy a red car, and all of a sudden, everybody owns a red car.
That's it.
But I picked that magazine up, and when I opened up the cover, there was a picture of Chuck Norris with his foot up in a chair and a little old lady, him in his gi bottom. I knew at that moment I wanted to be a karate champion. So the power of books and the power of magazines have that ability to help us grow. And what you have done with the millions of copies that you've sold, so you have truly impacted not only the martial arts, but all the other endeavors that you're doing, as an author. Some people write one book. I tell my authors, I said, if you want to become, to build a brand or become a celebrity author, you can't write one book. You now begin to write more. And then the more you do, the more your mind opens, the more things you can do. So I have 60 publications, including my magazines, but that's just 60 things that I was doing at that moment. So it's let me go find something in the wilderness to do. What am I doing right now? I can do a book on podcasting, how to interview the great martial artists of the world. It doesn't matter because it's an information source. And right now is one of the greatest times that you were saying as, self-publishing is one of the greatest times because, we don't have to buy the thousands of books in advance because we can now, on demand purchase, of the book. So many things have changed. And I know that, you are not only a pioneer in the book industry. We think about pioneers as though people in the back, the old guys, but you're still in front, still making waves, doing bestsellers, still influencing, still motivating people to become inspired and discover themselves.
Yeah, one of the things that has happened is I've become a student of Asian philosophies. You're not allowed to say Oriental. I don't know why, man. That woke nonsense. So I know the Japanese mindset to the extent that I do. I know the Chinese because of the art of war. And as a matter of fact, my next project that I'm working on, I'm starting to lay it out now, is the Warriors I Ching. which is the Chinese book of changes. I've already done the Tao, Lao Tzu, and that, called the Living Tao. Anybody who wants to see what my output is can go to Hanshi, HANSHI.com/books. They'll see them all listed, all the spiritual books, the martial arts books, the novels, the management books, and things like that. By taking on a project like the I Ching, where you really have to go deep, okay? I mean, it's not like, okay, so if somebody pulls a sword, you have a choice not to pull your sword or to walk away. It goes a lot deeper than that, like it makes you explore your own motivations. All right, so I'm going to have some fun with that. Why did I say fun? Because if my work is not fun, and I don't mean ha-ha fun. Okay. If my work is not fun, it becomes labor.
Mm-hmm.
And to really be able to get your message across, you cannot look at your chore, your task, your profession, writing, whatever it is, as like, oh man, let me knock off this book. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't pick up on my same philosophy, but I'm not here to impress them. I'm here to impress me and the creative power of the universe who has blessed me. And I'm upfront with this, with the ability to do this based on the needs of it. The same way when I'm playing my music, yeah, I'm playing to knock me out, knock you out, but I'm playing so the creative power of the universe dances. When the creative power dances or reads my book and says, hey, okay, not bad. Let me give that old fool a little more ammunition over here, So it just keeps going. So, I got another 20, 25 years to go with my life. I'm definitely going over the yard line, 100, 110 probably. Why?
Right.
That's my head. And I do what I got to do to maintain that sensibility. Aside from that, each project that I get into has got to be based on it revealing itself to me. Not me going after and say, hey, man, I think I can do this, man. Yeah, nobody knows this, man. No.
Fury.
It comes down, I can't talk to this guy now. It comes down to me having to have the impulse from a higher consciousness. Now, however you want to define it, God, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Allah, whatever you want, okay? It's got to be your personal connection with the creator of the universe. It's as simple as that. Now you can argue it back and forth. I don't want to get into a pissing contest here of the, well, yeah, but if I believe in this and you don't believe it, no, that's got nothing to do with this, man. Okay, what it has to do is you pick up certain energies that take you to a certain place in your own universe. When you get into this place of your own universe, you better have a extraordinarily powerful ego. Wait a minute, man, you got to get rid of your ego. No, that's a misconception. That's one of these cool moo things, okay? Your ego, my ego, has to be the most powerful ego that ever existed since the creation of the universe, and I'm going to tell you why. Once I accept myself as that, knowing that the creative power of the universe created me for this particular thing, then I don't have to tell you, hey, dig me. Okay? I'm doing the work. And as I do more of that, and I, every once in a while, I'll get some profound idea. I don't, so I'll goof with it a little bit, but I go like this.
Okay. Wow. This is
this. You know where I'm going with this, okay? So I don't want to think, but I'm just letting you know how I function, how I work. And because I do this, I have a good time doing it.
Well, that's the same.
That's my work. You don't have to like my work. I like my work.
Right.
And that's what counts.
Right. Well, that's the same thing. The same.
This is great. I'm having a good time here.
That's the whole principle, because nothing that I tell folks all the time, there's nothing that I do, because I am guided, I'm guided by God, my God, to do. Because when I wrote the Who's Who book, I did when I wrote the Who's Who book, I did not realize that someone else had already, Bob Wall had already produced that book. It was already out. We'd already produced the book because my teacher wrote the book Who's Who in American Karate. That was Jan Wellendorf and Dale Brooks. And so I did a tribute to them. There was only scheduled to be one book. And so I did something just as a tribute to them. And I said, well, we're just going to call it, I didn't want to call it Who's Who in American Karate. So I said, just Who's Who, in the martial arts. And we released it. And so, as you said, as you're saying, when you do something, sometimes you're led to do something. And when you can hear the voice and you are obedient, and because I'm a minister. So, when you are obedient in that voice, then that door opens up, because this is creativity. So where does creativity come from? So when that's exactly right. I share just a couple stories. I was dealing with some relatives, and because God speaks to me, and I was dealing with some relatives, and I was sitting down here in my chair, and I stood up. It's about 2:00 in the morning, and this voice says to me, God forgives, why not you? So I sat down and I wrote the book, and the book is titled God Forgives, Why Not You? It's an Amazon bestseller. I had another occasion that someone was telling me, Jesse, you have so much vision, man. You just got all this vision. And I got up out of bed early in the morning, and this voice speaks to me again. And the voice says, God gives you vision. So I wrote the book, God Gives Me Vision. And then, like I said, back here about a year ago, I was procrastinating on some stuff that needed to be done. And the voice says to me again, don't procrastinate on God. So guess what I did? I wrote the book, Don't Procrastinate on God. So so that's what we're saying to authors. When you have to have, we call it creativity, but it's also, martial arts when we're working and punching and blocking, we're developing a spiritual power within ourselves. Yes, and being able to, and at the end of the day, that's why great masters should have wisdom. And it's not necessarily about the things they've experienced in their lives. A lot of it's about the things that we know that we don't know how we know, but we know. That's what I call that power, of empowerment and being an author.
I gotta quote Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life is the day you're born and the day you find out why you were put here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where it's at, because everybody's, what's going on? What's happening? You've got to really let go of yourself and enter the void, the true void. Move. At that point, there's no restriction, there's no interference with the message. Let's go that way. With the message, okay? And you're gonna when you get that message, me? Well, why me? Okay? And this started happening. It didn't happen right away with the 5 rings. This happened about 4 or 5 books in, when I started doing self-revealization acceptance, which is one of the most profound tools you can ever use to create instant reality. All right. It's a whole thing. We should maybe have a thing about that one time. I'll send you a copy of that too. Next thing you're gonna have I got the Hanshi Stephen library over here. I got to get another house. That kind of thing. Okay. No, but all of these things take place only when you let yourself be. You got to let yourself be. And at that point, nothing can interfere. And you've got to be able to shut everything out that's like creating disharmony or something like that. So a lot of people,
Well,
go ahead, I got that.
I have the answer to the question that you asked me in Atlantic City. The question what you said to me, you said, there's something we should do together.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. But you see, that's what we're talking about. We met, I have been knowing of you for years, but we actually met in Atlantic City, but it seemed like we've been knowing each other, for a very, long time. So, you just said, what matches up with what I do, that you and I, we basically do the same thing. So the thing with this that we're on the air. So I want you to think about, let's put together a creative writing class, but from what we just discovered, what we just said a few moments ago.
Teach writing.
Yeah, a creative writing class, and let's do it.
Well, let me think about this because it's starting. No. Yeah, okay. Bada bing, let's do that. How do you set it up?
Okay, I'll take care of it. So this is what we were just saying a few moments ago, and it just came in and hit. So we're actually having a spiritual movement right here. When you meet people, sometimes we don't realize why we meet them, but in our purpose in life, and the universe is guiding us to a place. And it's not about the doors that I personally open, but it's the doors that, with the universe, with God, that opens and brings people together. And you go, why are we actually, I was talking with Grandmaster Joe Corley from the Battle of Atlanta. We're best friends. The likelihood, I say this a lot, I don't know how he takes it, but the likelihood of us having the relationship that we have, because he's a great friend, he's a great man, he's a great mentor. But you see, I couldn't have moved the things forward that I did. I probably would have quit. But you see, he was placed there to motivate me to say, no, let's go ahead and do another book. You see, so a lot of times we have people in our lives that are there to inspire us, because there is a higher purpose in our lives. So I think for people for writers to understand, you got to leave yourself behind, and you got to be able to go into discover and to hear the voice. When you hear voices, you got it.
I'll tell you what happens sometimes. I'll use a perfect example here with Silent Moon, okay? When I started writing this, I think, the first 20 pages. I said, that's enough. I got it. Leave me alone. I want to go out and have a pizza. And a couple of months later, I'm looking at it, and my friend calls me and says, what happened with the book you were writing about the sword? I said, I don't know, man. Where else? I go find it. I'll go find my files, right? So I said, yeah, I got it here. She says, finish it. I said, what do you mean finish it? Click. She hangs up. I said, what you hang up for? Call me back when you're done with the book. Oh, man. Okay. Anyway, so I start looking at every time you make changes, you got to reread it from the beginning. A lot of people don't do that. And that's why a lot of books don't hold. I'm reading, and all of a sudden, I'm typing, I said, oh shit, wow, that's pretty heavy. And I just keep going. The next thing you know, you got 380 pages, right? But the point is, you have to know, not believe. People can believe. Oh, there it is again. It's correct action. It's not like, hey, well, man, yeah, nobody knows what the hell's going on, man, so I can just do this, that, and the other thing. No, can't do that. When you start to take on a project like this is not like you got some clay, you're going to make an ashtray out of something like this. Okay, hey, here's my ashtray. This goes all over the world, man. This is your legacy. This is your legacy. And how you define yourself is what permits you to create on the level that the CPU, the creative power of the universe, is specifically picking you for. You got nothing to say about it. You can screw it up. You can, which is what 99% of the people on the planet do. Or you can say, where do you want to go with this?
And that's what you have to do. That is actually it. That is, and that is it. And until someone can understand that, and then until they can get that, then they're always mediocre. Someone can advertise and put stuff out there, but you read the book and the book doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But when you are now in your own spiritual place, and now you can open up, and that voice, that subconscious, your conscious now gets put over here, and your subconscious is now at that place that it can hear, it can function from a higher place. So I'm excited about that, and so I'm going to work on that, and we're going to touch base and get something squared away. So everyone, so remember, we just, you just witnessed on the podcast, that we're going to be coming together and helping you, so the legacy is that now I am, hey, thank you, Lord. I have been blessed to be able to move here. So I want to reach down. And that's what I tell people. I want to help pull people up. So the knowledge, if I'm only holding the knowledge, then the knowledge doesn't have value. But if I can now bring you up, and I can help you up, and you now grow from this experience, then my legacy of what I've done is now it goes on, because that knowledge is actually passed on to you. So any last words, sir, you want to take in half?
So what?
Any last words you want to have?
Anybody wants to get in touch with me, I respond accordingly. I don't like SFK. If you can make a sign or something, SFK 422 at gmail.com. Let me see if I can do that, man.
Well, I'm going to put it in the, it's going to be also in the post also. So they'll be able to get it there too.
I want to take this. I want to put it on my website too.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And start viralizing it. Yeah, no, there's a lot going on. And what he's basically talking about is the self-realization acceptance. When I say, okay, where do you want to go with this? Just comes back and says, just sit down and type. It's okay. Wow.
Well, everyone.
Stuff like that. I need you to IM me your mailing address so I can get this to you.
Yes, sir.
And, bada bing. Hey, that's Brooklyn. Hey, New York. Hey, bada bing,
Well, everyone, this has been a great podcast today. We've talked about a lot of things. When you hear our podcast or you're listening, remember, it's not the one time that you may hear it. It's the several times you go over it or you share it with someone. So this is a little bit different than I do on my Off the podcast because, we have a legendary author that's already done all these things. People all over the world, they're reading his books, they're reading his works. So a lot of information there, and I'm excited about the opportunity to to create and cultivate a working relationship, not in so I can learn. So like I said, I listen. I don't hold all information. I'm always a student, but that you can learn to be able to discover your own inner voice And that is not the pen and paper, but when you can discover yourself through meditation, you can discover yourself through prayer, but it's that relationship, with the universe, with the higher power, with God, that opens you up to be able to create your purpose as a writer and in the books that we're doing. So remember, if you're thinking about writing a book, reach out to us, at Elite Publications. And of course, our website is elitepublications.org. Everyone has a story, and you just have to get it out. Hey, this is Jessie Bowen saying be blessed, and I'm going to see you the next time.